Hi, as part of our work of representing the voice of business, I am delighted to welcome you to this, a new video series entitled Talking Thames Valley. We've invited respected journalist Andrew Peach to have conversations with a selection of our members who represent industries across the wider region and businesses large and small. They're going to share their stories of the challenges and opportunities that they and their clients are facing. And also we're going to be using it as part of our wider campaign to ensure that in an election year that the Thames Valley business community is recognised for its contribution to the wider challenges that the UK faces. Sit back and enjoy.
Excellent. So if I could just ask you first of all to introduce yourself and then I'll throw some questions your way.
Okay, my name is Joanna DeBiase and I'm the managing partner of IBB Law LLP, which is a firm of lawyers based in the Thames Valley. And we are 30 partners and turn over about 25 million. So although we are a fairly large law firm in the region, we're quite a small business in reality. So we cover a wide range of services to clients, mainly private client, commercial services and commercial property. And we do actually have a legal aid practice still, which is something of an oddity. We do about £2 million worth of criminal legal aid in the region as well, which is our way of making sure that the most vulnerable people in our community still have access to justice. And I think it's becoming more and more difficult. So that's quite an important role we play in the local community. So that's IBB.
You did a presentation at the Windsor Debates for Thames Valley Chamber of Commerce recently on the subject that everyone in every business of every size is talking about, which is artificial intelligence, how to make the best of it, but also how to avoid the pitfalls. And it was really interesting to think that although the law will always be 3 steps behind AI, that doesn't mean there isn't any law that regulates it. So what do people who are running businesses in our area need to be aware of in terms of that, in terms of how existing law applies to AI that they're thinking of incorporating in their business or already using?
Well, I think the most important thing to think about are the data protection laws. And that's sort of a bit left field, but if you think about AI, it's based on data. And like I said in my presentation, AI is like a beast. You have to feed it data to gain insight. And so the data that you're putting into your AI systems has to comply with the data protection regulations. So the starting point for everyone really is making sure their data architecture is right, and that they've done a data impact assessment, and that they're sure that they're using their data with the consent of from the people that they've collected the data from. So I think the most important thing for businesses to think about really is how they handle and manage data. And if they're setting up any new systems, to make sure that they're aware of what data they're putting into those systems. So if they're using data to train large language models, or they're using data to gain insight about their customers and their business, they really need to be aware of the data protection regulations.
And also, I mean, I'm a journalist, so I'm particularly interested in laws of libel, that kind of thing. You know, if AI generates a response that is libelous and it's your AI, your firm has libeled someone potentially and would face the consequences of that in the way that if you'd published it in a book or something of that sort.
That's right. I mean, I think most people think about copyright and libel as the first points of call in relation to AI, definitely. And I think that's because we've already seen some case law coming out in different parts of the world, especially in America. There have been quite a few cases in relation to that. I think you may have seen one of the cases I referred to is about a DJ on the radio, and where they're using deep fakes to create they're replicating somebody's voice and putting words in their mouth. yes, it can be used for that. I think that's less likely in a business setting because there aren't many businesses that are creating content that is, using AI to replicate somebody's voice or even their image. But there are tools out there that people are going to be using to create training materials or using images of people in their organization to create training materials that might be used worldwide. And then you've got licensing rights. So it becomes very, very complicated. But I think the main worry for businesses will be in this using data inappropriately or out of control because they've created systems where the data is being used to automate tasks that were in the past done by humans, and some of the decisions might be a little bit suspect, for example, in HR selection. So yeah.
And in some ways, what I got from the talk, in some ways, there's less specific legal regulation in terms of AI in this country than there is in the European Union, for example, which sounds good on the surface, but then it makes it rather harder to navigate, I guess, if the law itself isn't flagged as an AI law.
I think that's right. It's very difficult because you don't want to stifle innovation, and the UK government have quite rightly said they want to be pro-innovation. I think there's a couple of problems that the UK government are saying that they want under their strategy. They're saying there are sort of 5 principles, and they want various regulators around the country to to incorporate those 5 principles in their own regulation. But then you end up with a very fragmented sort of framework where all the regulators are doing it a slightly different way. And so as a solicitor, my main regulator is the Solicitors Regulation Authority, but some of our business sometimes is also regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. So there may be some conflict between the regulations interpretation of those 2 organisations, and I'm regulated by the same one. So which one do I go with? So it does create more difficulty for businesses. So I think that is a problem. I think in the European Union, all the member states will be subject to regulation that's quite clear, and they're also going for a risk-based approach. But what we'll see there is, it'll be easier for businesses to work out what regulation applies to them because it will be centralised. And of course, if businesses in the UK are selling products and services that are falling under those regulations in the EU, we will also have to comply with those regulations. So it's sort of a double helping of confusion for UK businesses.
And do you find that businesses are holding back a little bit, seeing how the landscape develops in terms of not only the evolution of AI itself, but the legal regulatory framework for it? Or do businesses see the entrepreneurial advantage and want to pursue that and worry about the things that follow on afterwards?
Well, I think it depends on the size of the business and their access to the tools and whether they've got processes that they're considering automating. I mean, speaking from my own perspective, we've looked for process which is purely administrative, and then we have actually automated some of our very administrative processes. And I haven't worried very much about regulation in that regard because I don't feel that anything I'm doing is anything other than automating process that I would have used traditional automation tools, which are not AI tools, for example. But I think that what we're going to see is these tools bundled up and sold to provide businesses with insight. And when those tools are set up, I think people will start to think, well, I'm now going to put all of my proprietary information or client information or customer information into a database that is going to be manipulated by AI. Then I think alarm bells should ring and people will start to have to think about that. And I think that's why really it'd be a good idea for companies and organizations to have a look at their data protection policies and start thinking about data architecture before that happens, and so it becomes part of risk management as the strategic planning process. But yes.
Well, I feel sure that the conversation that we've had, that people are watching on the website or on the Thames Valley Chamber social channels, will have sparked all sorts of thoughts about what can be done, but also the sort of caution that needs to be put in place around the use of AI. Jo, thank you very much. It's really good of you to take part. Thank you.
Good. Thank you.
That was really nice, Jo. Thank you ever so much. It's very nice meeting you. I'm fascinated by AI. I wish I understood more about it, but I'm fascinated, and I suspect it's going to form more and more the backbone of content of this kind of thing as we go forward.
One of the things I find really interesting is I've got a subscription to the FT, and they have a really interesting stream of articles related to AI. They publish something almost every day, and from around the world. And I just can't wait for my next helping every morning with my breakfast of what is going on. So it's not only about, but it touches on so many different areas. They publish stuff about the law, they publish stuff about business, and it's global. So you get a real feel for what's going on in other places. So I highly recommend.
There's an idea in my head, which in fact, it was someone else's idea, but there's an idea brewing that we might try and create some kind of audio podcast that does the same sort of thing, because there's such hunger for information about AI that people are so keen to know about every aspect of it. Whether you could do it every day, I don't know, but if you could create a sort of regular thing that people with a hunger for the information might go to. Whether I or we can achieve that, I don't know, but it's something that's brewing at the moment.
It's very interesting. Yeah, I mean, it touches on ESG as well, because there have been big shareholder meetings with Microsoft and Apple where big investors are asking for more information about what these companies are doing with the products, because they're worried about reputational damage. So I think recently in the US, there was a Microsoft shareholder meeting where a very large investor was asking a lot of very difficult questions that they couldn't answer. And we've seen the whole thing with Sam Altman and OpenAI and Microsoft's sort of interference in that company, which was originally set up as a not-for-profit to develop the AI for the good of mankind kind of thing. And now it's being totally overrun by Microsoft's desire to make money out of it. It looks like from the outside. I don't know, but it is. There's so many interesting facets, from the technology to the regulation to the ESG part of it, and it's just an amazingly rich subject.
Exactly that. But also it's something everyone that rare thing, something everyone wants to know about but doesn't already know about. And that's that'll be ephemeral, won't it? But right now that feels very where things are.
I know you've got to get on to the next one. One of the things that I'm really interested in is this thing about the oil and gas industry, and how, without realizing it, and an area of the economy that was kind of a bit unregulated, and people have made a lot of money. Families have become fabulously wealthy from oil and gas and so on. But now we've got the climate change problem, and so it's sort of like history repeating itself, really. Are we going to see AI become this tool that puts everybody out of work? And it sort of disrupts our whole economic system of how do you make a living, and how do and I think The Economist has got some very interesting stuff on that as well. But yes, so it's very far-reaching.
I wish we could chat for longer. It's really, really good to meet you. Thank you very much indeed for taking part, and I hope we'll talk again. Thank you.
Yes, good.